Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. Last week we talked about King Cuerno, the Hunter, and now today we're going to talk about his first ever prey, who actually ended up, I believe, coming out on top, Drago.
Yes, Drago, I think you and I can agree, Ashton, one of the coolest looking performers in Lucha Underground, hands down one of the best attires, and really one of the coolest gimmicks I've seen in quite some time.
Definitely
Drago's,
top three. I would put him in a category with Pentagon and Bengala.
yeah, I would agree with that, hands down. Drago's just such a great character type wrestler. He's solid in ring. I think Drago, to me, given his age and where he's at in his career, is like that dependable hand. You know, you put him in a program, you know he's going to give it his all in that program, and he's going to make it fantastic. So I'm really excited to be talking about his first season and how they could utilize him for season two.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk about what he did do in season one. He had a very, very interesting season one. He didn't even last the entire season, but he did exist towards the beginning and at the very end of the season. So let's talk about at the very beginning. Obviously, his first match was the epic triple threat. Him, Phoenix, and Pentagon, and these guys just killed each other.
Oh my God, it was an extraordinary back and forth between all three of these guys, all three of them really showcasing what they had to offer. And I believe Drago, wasn't he the man that didn't eat he wasn't even a part of the decision on either side, right? Because
Correct.
didn't,
Phoenix,
yeah,
I believe, yeah, Phoenix pinned Pentagon.
yeah, that's right.
So that I mean, it's strange that we say that though, because that actually ended up leading to Drago having, I believe, didn't he have a match with Pentagon on the following night?
I believe he did, yes.
Oh no, was it Drago or was it Phoenix?
I feel like it was Drago, I thought. And then Drago got the win.
Over
But
Pentagon.
over Pentagon, I thought, yeah, because yeah, I thought that Pentagon and Phoenix, did they even interact the first season? And if they did, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, well, but I know for a fact that the main event of episode 3 was that triple threat, right?
Right, yes.
Um so then episode 4 rolls around and I feel like it was Pentagon versus Phoenix, but it might have been Drago.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was Pentagon Phoenix because Drago faced King Cuerno that night.
Okay,
That
all
was their
right.
first match. My bad. Yeah, that was their first match. Oh my goodness. And then episode 5, Drago faced Mil Muertes.
Right, and Mil Muertes,
It was
remember
it was
Phoenix.
sort of a series because Cueto didn't really feel like he got a good gauge of Drago's skill in his debut because he wasn't a part of the decision. He didn't win or lose. He was just kind of there.
Right.
So then he wanted to really test Drago, and he did that with Cuerno, and obviously Drago won that, and it's arguable that he did it in sort of a cheap way with that sort of crazy pinning combination of his, the Dragon's Tail or the Dragon's Lair or whatever you want to call it. So then the following week he put him up against Muertes, and obviously, I mean, it's Muertes, so he didn't.
Yeah, it's pretty foregone conclusion there. So
Yeah. But we got some awesome character development on Drago, talking about how uh, history books talking about how dragons were protectors and they could fly and destroy everything in their path, and in their time they ruled the earth and struck fear in the hearts of even the bravest men. That time wasn't kind to dragons, though. They had to adapt and they went extinct, but one arose as a man. And of course, that's Drago. So then he ended up with more matches against King Cuerno. The awesome falls count anywhere match, I believe it was, or no, it was just a no DQ match, right? Uh, um, no hold
yeah, that's
hard, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
It's like a Boyle Heights street fight, I think it was something like that. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was it was good stuff. These guys always put on great matches. Um, Drago did actually kind of taunt King Cuerno at one point because Cuerno's kind of his whole thing is that he likes to just kind of chill out on top of buildings and scout his opponents. But Drago did the same thing to him in a match that he had with Superfly, just to kind of get back in his head. And then, of course, we had the big two different 10-way matches in episode 8, and then Aztec Warfare, which Obviously, Drago did not win because otherwise he would have been the first ever champion. We had that awesome match where he did the splash off of Cueto's office. Drago, I believe he was either first or second. I'm trying to remember whether it was him or Johnny Mundo that was the first one to come off Cueto's office and attack people. I think it was technically Johnny Mundo because I think he did it in the first part of the season before Aztec Warfare happened to attack the crew, right?
Yeah, he was making that dramatic entrance. So
Yeah. But then Drago was second. He did the awesome splash where he basically did a face plant through a table.
yeah.
It was awesome. And then of course last Luchador standing to finish off their feud. And then we kind of transition into this big epic feud between Drago and Aerostar that wasn't even supposed to be a feud. It was just a one-off match until Cueto comes out and he's like, hey guys, you're not done. We're going to have 5 of these. And whoever wins 3 is going to win the whole thing and is going to get a special opportunity. So Drago, of course, ends up winning 3 of the 5 matches. And then his special opportunity is a world title shot. But if he loses, he's out of the temple. Of course, he loses thanks to Hernandez.
Yeah, damn you, Fernandez.
and yeah, because he loses, he gets banished from the temple. But then later on in this season, we get a big match involving, I think it was episode 31, we get a big match involving everyone that's ever challenged Puma for the title. And of course, Drago is one of those people. So even though he was banished from the temple, he finds out about this match and he gets into the temple and confronts Cueto about it and says, well, I mean, the biggest kind of sound bite was the whole "let me fight" thing, which was just great because Drago yelling angrily and scaring the shit out of Cueto was just gold.
Oh yeah, that was a great scene. Right amount of drama, right amount of tension. It was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So he manages to get into that match with the stake that if he doesn't win, he will not only still be banned from the temple, but he'll have to give up his mask as well. But it doesn't matter because he still ends up winning.
Yeah, I believe he ended up pinning. I think it was King Cuerno he pinned after the mist. So yeah, good job there on Drago.
Cuerno? It might have been Cuerno, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got an opportunity now where he gets to face Mil Muertes because obviously later on that night, Katrina was not very happy that Cueto was naming a number 1 contender for Ultima Lucha without including Mil Muertes. So he set up the match between Drago and Mil Muertes the following week. Drago doesn't win, unfortunately. But you can argue that he might have won if it had been a legal fight because Hernandez attacked Drago before the match even started.
Yeah, he had tagged him, choked him out with a leather strap, and pretty much just left the pickings for Mil Muertes. So that's kind of what really, again, continues to fuel this feud.
Right.
So there you go.
Well, and continuing on in the feud, we got a singles match between them that, again, Hernandez stole a fan's belt and used it to whip Drago. So Drago won, but only by disqualification. And then we got the big old Alberto El Patron team versus Johnny Mundo team in the only Atomicos match of the season. And Drago was on Team El Patron. I'm sorry, Drago, you were on the wrong side of that team. But so then this all really just leads up to this big, awesome Believers Backlash match between Drago and Hernandez, where the fans are around the ring. They all have straps, and they're allowed to use them on whomever, whenever they want. And, of course, they like to use them a lot more on Hernandez than Drago.
Of course. And Drago, of course, being the fan favorite in a match like this, he does get the win over Hernandez. The one great highlight to me of this match is when Hernandez goes for this big vaulting dive over the rope, but he gets intercepted with the mist by Drago in the face. And he does end up getting the win after, I think, a splash on the inside. So Drago's Ultima Lucha experience is a winning one after everything else he's been through. So that's how he punctuates his season.
Absolutely. So now let's move on. Let's talk about season 2. Immediately, I want Drago to start the season off really strong because he closed the season out for season 1 strong. I want him to carry that momentum. I think that after Prince Puma is done with his title shot, I think it would make a lot of sense that unless Phoenix decides to cash in afterwards, Drago would probably be the next guy in line to go after Mil.
I mean, they do have that history. They've been in the ring with each other before. It would be interesting. Me, I would I too want some continuity, albeit in a different sense. We saw in the closing segment Drago telling Aerostar, until we meet again, my friend. I would like to see those guys hook up with a third guy and be a part of the trios division for the early part of the season. I
Who do
wouldn't
you
want that
think?
to. And see, that's where I kind of have difficulty because it can't be a guy like Arhennis because he's,
Well, I
one
mean,
of the
dude, let's
second.
just stick them all together. Him, Phoenix, or not Phoenix, him, Aerostar, and Bengala.
Well, that sounds good. I could work with that. Yeah. So you have those guys pursuing the trios titles early in the season. I would want their dissolution to kind of carry over to the next program for Drago, but I don't want Drago and Aerostar to feud again. So maybe Drago and Bengala. Because here's my thing with Drago, right? Because of the story of dragons and because they're protectors and stuff like that. To me, I have a hard time visualizing Drago as a Rudo. I
Oh
would
yeah,
want to
I
keep him
agree with that.
Technico.
Yeah.
So to me, but then again, we don't really know much about Bengala. So him being a cleaner slate, maybe it could be easier for him to go Rudo. I don't know. I do know that again, I would like to see Drago start out in the trios division and then go back to singles like later in the season. I don't know. Maybe he kind of runs into Chavo and his crew. Maybe he's
See,
in the wrong
and
place for a long
I
time.
kind of have the opposite view. I want him to really start out strong in a singles push. I want him to, I mean, maybe he just doesn't show up for the first like 4 or 5 episodes, but then when he does show up, it's him kind of reminding Mill, hey man, you might have beat me last season, but I also got beat down by the guy that I eliminated from the temple. So I think I deserve an opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, I could see that. Do that, get him in there.
Yeah, I would even say he should have like a really strong showing in Aztec Warfare. Now, I imagine Aztec Warfare this season is probably going to be for the #1 contendership rather than being for the world title because it wouldn't make sense to put the championship up in a 20-man gauntlet match.
Right, right.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it's probably going to be just for #1 contendership. But the other way of getting #1 contendership is by beating Phoenix for the Gift of the Gods championship, unless he cashes it in which case you need to win an Aztec medallion.
You know what? I'm gonna do something weird for Drago's Ultima Lucha.
Okay.
I would like him to go against Marty the Moth. Maybe. I think that'd be an interesting matchup. I
Could you
think
see maybe like an intergender tag match, him and Sexy Star versus Marty and his sister?
that could work if you want to make the program that long. I was also thinking you could probably make it work because I don't know how long Marty's program Six Star is going to last with the introduction of his sister.
Right.
But Marty's the type of guy, like, he's so obsessed with his tribe and, like, this whole Aztec culture and everything. He could look at Drago and be like, oh my god, look, sis, the last remaining dragon, and develop, like, this sick fixation with Drago.
Oh, I
And
like that. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, they could even have it be like a mask versus hair match, even.
yeah, if you want to go that,
And I
absolutely.
think that Marty the Moth would pull off bald pretty well too.
I think what makes Marty such a great character, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because we haven't gotten to his individual episode yet, but he is a guy that has like this obsessive component to his personality. Like once he zones in on you, he does develop this fixation. So I think that would work with a litany of characters, Drago being
Yeah.
no exception.
Yeah.
I just think you need to give him a very basic motivation. So if he looks at his sister, it's like, oh my God, sis, do you see it? Do you see it? The last remaining dragon. I didn't think we'd ever see it. And Drago's like, I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. And then, we just kind of do that. I think, it's straightforward enough. And I think the segments would be gold because the Marty character is just fantastic. And Drago, even being something as mythical and as like extraordinary as a dragon, plays it so straight, that I think it would be a good contrast. Yeah, I'm going to say, even thinking about it out loud, Marty the Moth versus Drago at Ultima Lucha. I love
Okay.
that idea.
I dig that. I definitely dig that. I think I would have Drago have a strong showing earlier on this season. Maybe just win just in the first like 8 episodes. I would just have him win matches against sort of randoms. Maybe a win over Superfly. Maybe a win over El Mariachi Loco. That kind of stuff. Maybe even like a trios loss to the champions, or alternatively, they could even do a trios loss to Team Sitcom, Team Havoc, for the number one contendership for the trios titles that would send Team Havoc back to the titles and give them another opportunity to win them back. But eventually, at episode 9 for Aztec Warfare, I would have him win.
Interesting. Okay.
I would have him win Aztec Warfare. I would have him become the number one contender through that. I would have him face Mil Muertes for the title in episode 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. And I would have him just really take Mil Muertes to the limit. And even this new version of Mil Muertes, because let's not forget, Drago had a little bit of a reincarnation of his own, even if it wasn't as literal as Mil's was.
Right.
So I would have Drago take Mil Muertes to the limit, get really close to beating him. Maybe Katrina interferes. Maybe Drago gets distracted by something. I don't know. Some kind of an out so that you can say he could have won if it wasn't for insert excuse here.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's my early season plan for him. And then I would probably have him have one match with Aerostar towards the middle of the season where some evil, heelish, Rudo entity attacks both of them before the match ends, and they have to team up to take them out. So maybe it's Chavo and Blue Demon, or Chavo and the Crew, or Killshot and someone else, or something like that. But I think that Drago and Aerostar need to have some kind of teaming this year, whether it's a trios team or just a tag team in general. I think that that's a really good way to go. I like that idea from you. And then to finish the season, I would probably do something to the effect of Drago versus Cage, or Drago versus it's crazy because there are so many options. Maybe I love Drago versus Marty. I really love that, but I do feel like they're going to use Sexy Star versus Marty Martinez and his sister to really kind of extend that feud from beginning to end of the season. I think they're going to have that on like every 2 or 3 episodes, kind of like what they did with Black Lotus in season 1, where the storyline lasted from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, but they just kind of stretched it out really well. I think they'll do something really similar to that with Sexy Star and Marty and his sister.
And they could certainly pull it off because, as you just said, the precedent was Black
You know who
Lotus.
I want to see more of?
Who's that?
I want to see a legitimate feud sort of in the same style that he had with Aerostar in season 1, but this season I want Drago versus Argenis to be a thing.
That would be interesting, but isn't Argenis like one of the Disciples of Death now?
Well, yes, so that doesn't mean that he can't have another role in the show.
That is true.
It's never been acknowledged that the Disciples of Death are Ricky Mandel, Argenis, and El Mariachi Loco, just because they are.
Right, very true.
And from what I understand, there was a dark battle royal at Ultima Lucha that El Mariachi Loco won. So obviously being a part of the Disciples of Death doesn't disqualify you from participating in other stuff.
Well, that's good to know, because then I think it gives us more breathing room anyway, so I do like your idea.
And I really like the Argenis character. I think that he's highly underrated. He reminds me a lot of Hunico in WWE, but maybe even a little bit better.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see where you're going. I would like those two to be on a collision course. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah. So those are my ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love it if you would all tell us what you think, what you want to see Drago do. I always love it when our commenters tell us different things that we might have thought of, different angles that we might not have seen or gone at it with. So definitely fill us in on what you think would be a good idea. And we will see you all next time, which is going to be on Saturday. Yeah, today's Thursday. I got to get my days straight. See you on Saturday, where we will be talking about Aerostar. And then we're not going to give away who's going to be after Aerostar, but we do want you guys to try and guess, so see if you can figure it out. I'll tell you right now, the link isn't super strong between Aerostar and the next guy, but there is a link. So, John, any last thoughts on Drago?
No, man, I just can't wait to see what he does in the second season. Great hand, great talent, and we'll see you guys Saturday.